Masahiro Tanaka has signed a deal to play next season in his home country of Japan. Last season, Tanaka completed a 7-year run with the Yankees, going 78-46 over 173 starts in that span. And let me tell you, any team in the market for a superstar quarterback probably lining up their trade chips because one of the best around is available.
Going to go all in, right? On the day after the Texans chose their new head coach, Deshaun Watson officially wants out of Houston. Now, the trade request to the team was made weeks ago, according to Adam Schefter. We have much more on this developing story. Here's Michelle Steele on the Deshaun Watson timeline.
It was just over 4 months ago. Deshaun Watson was tearfully thanking the Texans front office after signing a contract extension.
You know, growing up from where I'm from, there's not too many people to make it out. And so for them to just trust me, it means the most.
The joy over the new deal didn't last long. After a rough start, Bill O'Brien was fired in October. A month later, the team fired their longtime VP of communications. The Texans managed just 4 wins.
I'm sorry. We wasted one of your years.
We just need a whole culture shift. We all got to be on the same page.
The Texans and their star QB were not on the same page. According to Adam Schefter, Watson felt the team was ignoring his input on head coach and GM candidates, with Watson tweeting some things never change after learning on social media the team had hired GM Nick Caserio. And the Texans, having hired Ravens assistant head coach David Culley as its head coach, might not matter to Watson. Chris Mortensen reported one source saying the only way to resolve things would be for CEO Cal McNair to fire himself, a sentiment shared by some fans who rallied in support of Watson this month.
If we lose Deshaun, Cal McNair might as well sell the team.
More than a few NFL teams would like to make Watson one of their own, including the team that plays at Soldier Field behind me. The Bears, who passed on Watson in the 2017 draft, could be in the mix as far as trade talks go, but remember, Watson will have a say in terms of where he ends up. That September deal has a no-trade clause. In Chicago, I'm Michelle Steele, ESPN.
As Michelle talked about, Labor Day last year seems so long ago. That's when Watson agreed to that 4-year contract extension. Now Houston is on the hook for over $40 million a year for their franchise quarterback if he's still around in 2022. Let's focus on 2021 for much more. Let's bring in NFL insider Adam Schefter with the very latest. And a lot of news coming out of Houston with them hiring David Culley as their next head coach. So, Adam, what's next here for Watson and the Texans moving forward?
Well, Kevin, we've seen Deshaun Watson make his decision, and now the Houston Texans will have to make theirs. And they will have to make the choice of the best of the worst case scenarios. They can either move on from their franchise quarterback who's disenfranchised at this point in time and collect a treasure trove of compensation in return for him, or they can simply squat on him and enforce their rights and try to uphold their end of the bargain, fine him for not being at mini camps, almost $100,000, fine him $50,000 a day for not showing up to training camp, fine him $620,000 for each preseason game he misses, and then try to recollect $21.6 million in money if he decides to retire. So each side has got its own ideas, but Deshaun Watson is a highly principled man. Don't think the Houston Texans are going to want to see this go the distance, but they're going to have to decide what they want to do next as teams call them and try to see if they are willing to trade Deshaun at this time.
If it goes the distance, we have seen other players, franchise quarterbacks like Carson Palmer, decide to retire. We have seen Khalil Mack. We've seen Jalen Ramsey say, no, we're done. We want to move forward. We want a new place here. And with you mentioning teams lining up, specifically, which teams out there have enough assets to pull off a trade like this?
Well, specifically, Kevin, I would tell you that there'd be 27, 28 teams in the league that would line up and be willing to part with whatever it takes to get a talent and person like Deshaun Watson. I think short of Kansas City, Buffalo, Baltimore, and a few others that have themselves a franchise quarterback, any other team would be crazy not to explore what it would take for Deshaun Watson. And when you're talking about trading for a player like this and a person like this, you do whatever it takes. If it takes 2, 3, 4, 5 first-round picks, you make it happen. Any team can do whatever it wants. So you're asking for the short list. I would tell you it's not a short list. It's a long list. And I also would tell you that even though Deshaun Watson has the no trade clause in his contract in which he could veto a trade to any team he wants, I think he's going to be open to most any team as long as that team is not the Houston Texans.
Getting Herschel Walker vibes here on a trade package. We will see how that plays out. Adam Schefter with the very latest here on Deshaun Watson. Much more on this story as SportsCenter continues. Ryan?
Kevin, on to this developing story. Speaking of quarterbacks, Big Ben wants to return to Pittsburgh, and the feeling's mutual, says the team. But the team says also that his contract will have to change. Roethlisberger's cap hit for 2021 stands at $41.2 million, a number Steelers owner Art Rooney II called untenable. Earlier today, Rooney spoke about his two-time Super Bowl winning quarterback's contract situation, saying in part, I think we've been upfront with Ben and letting him know that we couldn't have him back under the current contract. I think he understands that we have some room to do there. We'll have more conversations internally, and we'll have more conversations with Ben, and we'll have to know what the cap number is to finalize some of those decisions. Our Steelers reporter, Brooke Pryor, was one of the reporters asking Rooney questions today. She joins us now. But first, I just want to turn to this. Brooke, we have some new comments from Ben Roethlisberger responding to Rooney. Here's what he told The Athletic. He says, I want to do everything I can, and I made that very clear to them from the very beginning that it was my idea to basically help the team however I can this year. I'm pretty sure I want to go one more year. I think I can do it and give us a real chance at winning. I don't care about my pay at all this year. So that from Big Ben. So, Brooke, why was it so significant for these comments to come from the team's owner, Art Rooney II?
Right. I don't think that it's insignificant that he came out and publicly said, hey, we want this guy back, but he's going to have to take a pay cut, whether that's a straight up cut or a restructure and extension. He needed to publicly put the pressure on Roethlisberger and his team to get this deal done. Clearly it worked with Ben Roethlisberger coming out right afterwards saying, I will do whatever it takes. I've already said I want to do whatever it takes. And he makes it clear retirement is not coming in 2021, but whenever it comes, Art Rooney II said that they owe it to their quarterback to have the conversation about how he wants to end his career, and that's something they intend to do.
Okay, the chess moves being played in Pittsburgh, and Roethlisberger, by the way, has thrown for more than 60,000 yards in his 17 seasons with the Steelers. Brooke, thanks.
Now to Super Bowl 55, both the Bucs with Tom Brady and the Chiefs were back on their respective practice fields today. You know, the conversation with the quarterbacks and the age gap will always be a big topic. Here's Brady and Mahomes addressing the media.
Do you remember what age you were when you first became conscious of Tom Brady, or what your first memories of him would have been, how far back that goes?
It's probably September 17th, 1995 when I was born. He's been around for a while. Probably going to get a little bit more info because you get a full another week where you don't have as many obligations as far as going to different places and media night and everything like that. So it's a little different, but at the same time, I mean, it's just a football game at the end of the day, and you have to make sure you're ready to go no matter when it is.
As it's played out, you know, I've just thought, wow, this has really been a magical year, really, for me as a player. To switch teams, which, you know, that takes a lot. And it's always been a goal to win the last game of the year. So we got an opportunity to do it. It's certainly not going to be easy. And it's going to take everything we got. We're going up against a great championship level team, and it's going to take our best.
We're 10 days away from Super Bowl 55. Dan Orlovsky joining us now. Dan, we get it. You want to talk quarterbacks, but let's flip the script here. And let's talk defense. What should Bucs defensive coordinator Todd Bowles, what should be his approach against Mahomes and this Chiefs offense?
Yeah, listen to this one, okay, Kev? They should do what they do poorly more. Okay, the Bucs defense is very good playing man coverage. They're not great playing zone coverage. They should play a lot of zone in this football game. That's one team in Kansas City you don't want to play man coverage against, especially pressing them at the line of scrimmage. So they got to play some of that zone coverage, specifically some of that zone that they play match to, and they'll pass it off, some of those routes. That's going to allow that front four to at least have a little bit more time to get to Patrick Mahomes, right? So get that rush going, really work on those outside tackles that are going to be new players for the Kansas City Chiefs in this game. And then, you know, when you're dealing with Patrick Mahomes and playing zone defense, you're going to see a lot of the run-pass option, a lot of the RPO. You got to force him to hand the ball off. Like, you play the pass part of it first, hand the ball off, and then rally to the football and force them to run the ball. So it's difficult. We all know that, but you got to do a very specific plan or have a very specific plan against this offense.
Well, if it helps the Bucs defensive line, that will be a big story. They played really well against the Packers the last time we saw them on the field. I promise, Dan, we'll talk quarterback later in the show when it comes to Deshaun Watson.
Still to come.
We wasted one of your years. I mean, you should have 11 wins.
You know, JJ may be onto something. Let's go by the numbers on Deshaun Watson's extraordinary season. The former Clemson star accounted for 82.8% of the Texans' net yardage this season. That's the most by any player in a season in NFL history, and he became the second quarterback in NFL history to average 300 passing yards a game while completing at least 70% of his passes in a single season. Drew Brees was the first to do it back in 2011, and Watson led the league with over 4,800 passing yards this season, nearly 1,000 yards more than what he put up last season, and about 700 better than his previous best. And Elias confirms that Watson is the first player in NFL history with at least 100 touchdown passes and 15 rushing touchdowns in his first 4 seasons. And you know what? He did that despite playing only 7 games in his rookie year. An absolute superstar, just like Marcus Spears, who joins us now. So, Marcus, Deshaun Watson requested a trade a few weeks ago. The Texans named David Culley as their next head coach within the last 24 hours. What do you make of what's going on in Houston?
First of all, I feel terrible for David Culley. Been in this business a long time. First opportunity to be a head coach, and he's dealing with one of the generational talents at quarterback not wanting to be there. Outside of that speaks to the issue at hand, Ryan. The issue is between Deshaun Watson and Cal McNair, the ownership of the Houston Texans. And that's not changing. Look, you can make all of the small changes. You can bring Caserio in as a general manager. You bring Culley in as a head coach. You try to do things that look like you want to live in that same space that Deshaun Watson is in. And Deshaun is like, yo, I've been living in this space for now 5 years, and you guys haven't done right by me, so it's time to go. And non-communication by your franchise quarterback means more than just I'm unhappy with roster moves or I'm unhappy with things that have transpired on the team or we didn't win enough games. When you don't have communication with your franchise quarterback, the fundamental issue is with ownership and the front office, and that's where we are. So there's nothing Houston can do. Deshaun is ready to rock.
It's like Adam Schefter mentioned earlier. He feels disenfranchised is what it seems like. Now, Deshaun Watson coming off his best season yet since coming into the league in 2017. Where do you rank him among the best quarterbacks right now?
He's number 3 behind Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers. And, you know, that is what makes this situation unreal is because you very rarely see this type of talent, generational, a guy you know you can win a Super Bowl with, a guy you know you can win multiple Super Bowls with if you surround him with the right people, and a guy that competes at the highest level, like the 2 guys aforementioned. So, listen, we know what he did this year with Fuller and Stills and Kuti and those guys that they had, but we also know that they traded away his number 1 receiver, a generational talent at that spot in DeAndre Hopkins. Deshaun was not happy about it, but still went out and gave the Houston Texans every possible ounce of competitive nature and spirit that he had. And that speaks to him as well. Like, number 3 is what he would be at the quarterback spot. And you can make arguments that he's number 2 before Aaron Rodgers.
Can you imagine? I bet the bidding war is going to be intense for Deshaun's services, man. I'll tell you.
Ryan, I'm trying to get in the bidding war, man. Shoot, I'm trying to get in there. I mean, just
I don't know if you have enough,
Deshaun,
man. It's going to take a lot.
I don't have no team. I don't have a team you can come play for, but we can hang out. I just want to hang out around the greats.
You've got plenty of deals like Duke's Mayo. Offer some Duke's Mayo, Marcus, all right?
There you go. All right, Marcus, thanks.
It's got
Watson news, as Ryan talked about, comes less than 24 hours after the Texans hired Ravens passing game coordinator and wide receiver coach David Culley. He was the only African-American hired in the current coaching cycle. The 65-year-old Culley has spent 27 seasons coaching in the NFL. Again, the last 2 in Baltimore. Culley coached for Andy Reid for 18 seasons, and Reid today was asked about his offensive coordinator, Eric Bieniemy, being passed over for the 2nd straight offseason for a head coaching job.
I'm glad I have him, but I'm not so glad I have him. You know, so I was really hoping that he would have an opportunity to take one of these jobs. I mean, you guys know what I think of him. I think he's great, and I think he would be great for any of the number of teams that opened up and help them win football games and also develop men into men. So, you know, I just think he's a great person.
So unless a position opens this offseason, Bieniemy will wait until the next cycle of openings. Now that the 7 positions have been filled, all are first-time NFL head coaches, including one of the best to ever do it in the college game. That is Urban Meyer. Remember him? He's in now Jacksonville. Tony and Mike on the latest NFL coaching cycle.
Head coach hires.
You know, Tony, it's hard to assess this year's before guys have coached a game. You know, I might look back in 3 years and give it an F or an A. But let's just go over what I think of it now with the guys being hired like Salah and Arthur Smith and Staley, Meyer, Sirianni, Campbell, and Culley. And you add that to the group of head coaches out there who you know I've been screaming for a while, I don't think much of as a group, compared to, you know, like 1984 when you had guys like Landry, Reeves, Shula, Parcells, Noel, Ditka, Walsh, and Gibbs, stacked with Hall of Famers and secondary coaches like, you know, Raymond Berry and Tom Flores and John Robinson and Coryell and Knox. And so you could say then, wow, it might be tough to crack in, right? It might be tough. And there were black coaches then, by the way, that deserved a shot. But okay, you got Hall of Famers, you got secondary guys, one who's won 2 Super Bowls, not even in the Hall of Fame. But now you have a body of head coaches. And I look around and say, really? You mean to tell me Leslie Frazier can't get a crack at this? You mean to tell me Eric Bieniemy can't get a crack at this? That's garbage. They want to try to sell that. They're not selling that to me. With today's head coaches, maybe they can sell it better to you.
Well, I mean, I look at the ages, and so many of the head coaches that have been named in recent years are in their 30s, which seems really young to me now that I'm so old. Chuck Noll got his first head coaching job. He was 37 years old. You had no idea how he was going to turn out. John Madden had his first coaching job. I believe he was 33 years old. You had no idea how he was going to turn out. So the guys that are in there now, we have no idea how they're going to turn out. You got to give Joe Gibbs his first coaching job. You got to give Tony Dungy his first coaching job. You got to give Bill Parcells his first coaching. You know what I'm saying? Like they were coordinators. Like you didn't know, you weren't sure. And then over a long period of time, those guys were great and others fell by the wayside. So I guess what I'm saying is that I think it's an almost unfair question, as you were saying, to judge now.
Tony,
I just don't know.
I don't have to judge these guys now. I can judge a bunch of guys who've been in the league, like Gase. I can judge them. They've had 2 chances.
Oh, that's fine.
And they're not worth
That's fine. Sure.
the paper I'm holding in my hand. But yet, those first jobs, somebody ought to give Eric Bieniemy his first job. Somebody ought to give Leslie Frazier a job. I mean, this is so I'm talking about the guys we can judge in the NFL who I ain't impressed by, a great many of whom aren't going to get a sniff of the Hall of Fame. So these guys, God bless them. Hope you coach them up well. The NFL today versus where it was, I ain't hearing it.
Oh, that was so good. The NFL today. That's an old show.
Brent
good
would
job
like that.
out of you.
Brent
Good
and
job.
Irv and the Greek.
Yeah.
That's it. We're done. Back to you.
Thanks, Tony and Mike. Well, much more ahead on Deshaun Watson's trade request out of Houston. Dan Orlovsky assesses which teams should aggressively